Hello everyone, we are talking about the functions and specifically about the aspects of the functions that have to do with local variables, global variables, and that is practical use of functions in your projects. If your project is anywhere longer than your current homeworks, which is at best 10 lines of code or 12 lines of code, you want to understand this. For your final project, you do want to understand this. Okay, so here is a little piece of code. I wrote a void function. Take a moment, remember what it is. It is really a function that does not return anything. It prints something, but it does not return anything. And then I'm calling this function in the global, outside of any function, I call f of 3. So I'm calling this function. Then I defined a global variable t, and I call f of t. Let's see that it works. So the first number 7 is the result f of 3. You can check that quickly. And when t equals to 7, f of t equals to 15. Now the next little step is to recognize that y is a local variable. It only exists inside this function. And we cannot, for example, print y by itself. Outside of the scope of this function, we cannot print y. Y is a local variable with the scope this function. And that is what this error is about. Now, a little bit more here is how we could make y a global function. Y could be defined before, but if my y is a global function, I can say y global y. And that way, this code will work. Making sure it works. Yes, it printed 15 again. This was the last y value. Second time the function f of t was called, t was 7, and hence y value was 15. And that's why we printed 15 again. In any case, now my y is a global variable. Now, very important, while I'm not going to punish anyone for using global statements in your final project, I don't want you to do that. This is very bad programming. So let me delete that. And I'll also delete that. The next question, how can I use this y value later? And for that, I need to return it. First of all, I'm going to say here local variable y to explicitly show what we are printing. And I'm also going to return it. Return y. So now I'm returning. Let's rerun this. It works as before. I added this statement, so we called the function twice, one with 3, the other with the t value, which is defined before. So nothing new as it seems. So far, calling the function f of 3 or f of t returns value y, but since it's not saved as a variable, it is immediately garbage collected. There is no way to reference it later. In order to reference it later, we want to modify this code. Z equals to f of 3 and s, for example, equals to f of t. And I will now print s plus t, just for fun. So function can return a value, a local variable, but you have to catch it with another variable, with a global variable, if you plan to use it later, like I'm doing over here. Let me resize the idle. Local variable 7, local variable 15, that is my f of 3 and f of t working on their corresponding inputs, on their corresponding arguments, 3 and t. And finally, I'm printing s plus t. So if you wanted to do anything with the values that the functions return, you can. And that is why value returning functions are kind of more practical in many cases, and they can still print things, they can still do things, but they can also produce variables for you to work with later, which is usually what you want.